So, Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Today we are starting with chapter 7, and from here onwards, from chapter 7 to 12, it all deals with the Bhakti Yoga. Okay, so very important for devotees. So, before we start the class, please let us take the blessings of the beautiful deities of ISKCON Mangaluru, Sri Sri Radha Govind Ji. Sri Sri Radha Govind Ji ki Jai. Okay, so now let's see what is the synopsis of chapter 7. Okay, so so in chapter 6, last shloka, 47th shloka, what did we see? Krishna explains who is the best of all yogis, right? And what did Krishna say? Best of all yogis, who is he? A yogi who always thinks of him in devotion, concentrate on him in full faith. So he's talking about a bhakti yogi, right? One who's in Krishna consciousness. Okay, and chapter 7, that's why we are going to talk about such a person. Like first, they're going to talk about knowledge of the absolute, means they're going to talk about Krishna, who is the supreme personality of Godhead. Okay, so knowledge of the absolute. So we'll understand who exactly God is, Krishna is. So begins with stress process begins with stress means they lay importance on what Krishna lays importance on what process of hearing. He says hear from me. So the first shloka Krishna says shrunu means hear. So the way of acquiring knowledge by descending process as the only process. So hearing as it is coming from the parampara. Okay, whatever is being told that is coming from the parampara, we have to hear and take it as it is. Okay, so what is it that we have to understand about Krishna or the absolute truth? Knowing Krishna by the process of hearing about him, knowing Krishna as the source of matter and spirit. Krishna controls the modes of material nature. The impious never surrender and pious do, surrendering to demigods and impersonalism. So, all these topics will be covered in chapter 7. Okay, we're just going through the synopsis. Bewilderment of living entities and freedom by knowing Krishna. Okay, so 7.1 to 3, what we'll be learning is knowing Krishna in full by hearing about him. Okay, so first shloka. मय्यासक्तमनापात योगं युञ्जन्मदाश्रयः असंशयं समग्रं मां यथा ज्ञास्यसि tat shrunu. So that's what Krishna is saying. Tat shrunu. Shrunu means hear. So translation by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So now Krishna is saying, now hear, O son of Pritha, Arjuna, how by practicing yoga in full consciousness of me, with mind attached to me, you can know me in full, free from doubt. So Krishna is saying, by hearing, you can have full knowledge of me. Right? Put your mind on me. Right? And then you will know me in full, free from doubt. Okay, so how? See, Krishna will explain here. See here. So we'll be learning knowledge of the absolute. Lord Krishna explains how to know him by the process of hearing. Okay. So Lord Krishna, who is also known as absolute truth and the supreme personality of Godhead. Okay. So how can we know absolute truth or supreme personality of Godhead? We said earlier, right? There are three stages of realization of God. First is Brahman or impersonal realization. Second is Paramatma or localized Paramatma. Okay, that is one. A second, and the highest is what Bhagavan, who is a personality, and that is complete realization. So three stages. First is the impersonal Brahman, the Brahma Jyoti. The effulgence coming from Krishna. Paramatma is the yogis or the Ashtanga yogis who meditate on Paramatma within their heart. So that is also partial. So Brahman realization and Paramatma realization are partial, while Bhagavan, who is a person, is the highest and the complete realization. Okay, so living entity means what? Spirit soul. Okay, spirit soul. Okay, spirit soul, we can understand by different yoga processes. Like, how do we know? But see, when the living entity comes in this material world, it takes a material body and it thinks it is the body. But how does it come to know that it is a spirit soul? So, by different yoga process. So, by different yoga process, you are able to elevate yourself to self realization. So, what are the different processes? Gnana Yoga, wherein you realize Brahman through Gnana Yoga, and then Ashtanga Yoga or Dhyana Yoga, you realize Paramatma, right? Both these are partial realization. Why? Can anybody tell why Gnana Yoga and Ashtanga Yoga is only partial realization and not
Uh,
complete? Yes, Prabhuji?
Mataji, the Jnana, Yoga, and Dhyan,
Yeah,
and
Ashtanga Yoga, Dhyana Yoga, yeah.
they are partial realization, Mataji, because uh, in this, by following the scriptures, you only come to know that there is God, and you don't know what to do ahead to realize God.
Yes, perfect. That is one point, Prabhuji, definitely. See, they don't have, in Jnana Yoga, you see, they don't have complete realization of God. Okay, so they just, what do? They just have in Jnana Yoga, they focus only on the impersonal Brahman. That is, they want to merge inside that Brahma Jyoti, become one with God. So only they are looking for the Sat aspect. So when you go to Brahman, there is only Sat aspect in the sense that there is, you can be eternal, you can be eternally in that free space. See, when you merge, like you're roaming in space, right? When you merge into that light, it's like you are you have no identity now. You have no individuality also. So you're just roaming in space in that empty air-like thing. Okay, so what you have achieved through Gnana Yoga is like you're just Sat. You have that. You can be eternal. Okay, that Sat aspect is there. You can be eternal, but that Chit and Ananda is not there. Chit means you have no knowledge about Bhagavan. It is incomplete because you still don't have the knowledge of God, who is a person, and you can have a relationship with him. So that aspect is not there in Gnana. That is why it is partial. And in Ashtanga Yoga also, if you see, it is also partial. Why? See, only the yogis, they meditate on Paramatma within their heart. So there is no particular relationship. It is only that the Paramatma, he just guides, and he is acting as a witness, but there is no loving relationship between them. Okay, so the Sat aspect is there, Chit aspect is there. He has knowledge, knowledge of God. I mean, how now he understands that God is like conscious. So he understands God is Paramatma, right? Earlier it was impersonal Brahman. It is impersonal. So that personal aspect is not there. So here they have the knowledge that Paramatma, God is conscious. So they have Sat plus Chit. They have knowledge of God, right? So Sat plus Chit is there, but Ananda aspect is not there. Okay, so that is why this is also partial. Now, next, if we see, is Bhakti Yoga Bhagavan realization. That is complete. Why? Because there is Sat plus Chit plus Ananda. That bliss is there because that loving relationship is there between Krishna and his devotees. And we know that there are five main rasas, right? You can have relationship with Krishna in Shanta Rasa, Dasya Rasa, Sakya Rasa, Vatsalya Rasa, and Madhurya Rasa. So you can enjoy a blissful relationship. So that Sat plus Chit plus Ananda, three are there. That is why it is complete or Bhagavan realization. Okay.
Mataji,
Yes, Prabhuji.
Mataji, what do the last two rasas mean? Vatsalya rasa and uh,
Vatsalya and Madhurya. Right, Prabhuji?
yes, what do those two mean?
Yeah. Vatsalya Rasa means Prabhuji, relationship with Krishna as son, like Yashoda Maya and Nanda Baba. They have taken, I mean, like Krishna as their son, right?
Yes.
That is Vatsalya Rasa. Vatsalya Rasa means accepting Krishna as their son and loving him that way. Okay, and Madhurya Rasa is like the gopis of Vrindavan. Okay, Prabhuji?
Yes.
Yeah, that is Madhurya Rasa and Vatsalya Rasa. Okay, so let's proceed. So, what is Bhakti Yoga? Concentrating, focusing mind on Krishna, and then engage in 9 processes of devotional service. So, in the next slide, we'll see what are those 9 processes of devotional service through which we can do bhakti. Okay, it begins with hearing from Lord Krishna or his devotees, and by constant hearing about Lord Paramatma purifies the heart. So if you constantly hear about Krishna, it purifies your heart. And then devotee develops transcendental knowledge. See, only when you are purified will you be able to receive that knowledge. Otherwise, you won't be able to receive that knowledge. Okay, he becomes, then with that knowledge he understands that he is the soul and his duty is to serve the super soul. That's when he becomes fixed in devotional service. He is freed when he does starts doing devotional service. He becomes freed from the modes of passion and ignorance and lust and greed. Okay, so all that is gone. So when all that is gone, what is the only remaining? Pure goodness is remaining. So impurities are wiped off, and he is situated in pure goodness. Becomes enlivened in devotional service, understands the signs of Krishna perfectly. Okay, so he knows, he gets the complete knowledge of absolute truth. So we'll see what is the complete knowledge of absolute truth that he receives in the coming shlokas. Okay. Okay, so these are the 9 processes of devotional service. Okay, starts from hearing. See, hearing is Maharaj Parikshit. We all know how, with focus and concentration, Maharaj Parikshit heard from Sukadev Goswami, right? He didn't even eat, he didn't even sleep, he didn't even drink for those 7 days. See, for us people, to hear a Bhagavatam or a Bhagavad Gita class for 1 hour, beyond 1 hour, we start looking at the time. But Parikshit Maharaj's hearing was not like that. He was very focused. He said, like, in fact, he used to even ask more and more questions. If Sukadev Goswami just used to explain above, just orally, like above, like just like in brief, he used to, in spite of not eating, drinking, and not sleeping, he used to ask questions and go deeper into those whatever stories or philosophy that Sukadev Goswami used to say. Okay, that was his hearing. So we all should hear in that way. Focus should be like that. Forgetting, I mean, I really don't need to say you forget your eating, sleeping, and I'm just trying to say with that focus we have to hear. Like when we are hearing, we just have to hear with that focus. I mean, we should not focus on the time. Oh, is it 1 hour now? Is it 2 hours? Is it half an hour? We should forget about time. Focus more on hearing about Krishna. So our hearing should be like Maharaj Parikshit. So next is chanting or glorifying Sukadev Goswami. So Sukadev Goswami, he is actually only 16 years. Imagine a 16 years old boy. He's preaching about Srimad Bhagavatam. So he got delivered by preaching the Srimad Bhagavatam to Parikshit Maharaj. So Sukadev Goswami is the son of Vyasa Maharshi. Okay, and Vyasadeva is the disciple of Narada Muni. We all know that Narada is the disciple of Brahma, and Brahma is the disciple of Krishna, like that. Okay, so he went back to Godhead by giving that Srimad Bhagavatam. Okay, he's glorified for that. So next is remembering, Smarana. Smaranam is Prahlad Maharaj. See, Prahlad Maharaj, the remembrance of God, even in all the very toughest, see, we all think that we have many difficulties in life. Do any of us have difficulties like Prahlad Maharaj? No, right? We never faced such tortures that were given by his own father, like by making him getting stamped by elephants, putting him in a pit of snakes, and throwing him from the top of a mountain, and throwing him into the ocean, putting him in fire, such, and feeding him poison, and making his head cut off, cutting his head. So all these atrocities were done. But when all this was going on, he didn't even, what it is said that he didn't even blink his eyebrow. His eyelids didn't even blink. It means he didn't even show any sign of fear. When all these were done on him, he didn't even blink. He was always in the smaran of Narayana. He used to say Narayana, Narayana, Narayana. That's all. And that is what saved him. His faith in his smaranam saved him. Okay, that way we should remember Krishna throughout our daily life. Whatever be the situation, like Prahlad Maharaj, we should try to remember Krishna. Then only at the time of death, maybe there's a chance for us to remember Krishna. So that's why we should be sincere, and in whatever we are doing, like when we are chanting, focus on chanting. When we are hearing, focus on hearing. When we are reading, focus on reading. When we are doing seva, do that. Whatever we are doing, think of Krishna always. Whether we are shopping or whether we are walking, always think of Krishna, whatever be the reason. Try. Initially, I agree that it will be difficult, but practice makes a man perfect. See, small things like, when you're sneezing, when you sneeze, what do you say? Achi, and you say Amma, you say, right? Something like that, different. But when you sneeze, try to say Krishna. Initially, I was feeling it is difficult, but now when I sneeze, automatically Krishna only comes. Unknowingly, it comes. So now Krishna will think, oh, this lady, even while sneezing, she's remembering me. Even though we unknowingly try to say Krishna, it's like when we fall down, we say Amma, Oima, or something we say, right? Some expression we say. Instead of saying that, oh Krishna, we say, right? So Krishna will think, oh, in that situation also she remembered me. Okay, when you bang your head against the wall, don't say Abba, Amma, like that. Don't say those. Say, oh Krishna, Krishna, like that you say. Okay, Krishna will be pleased. He says, oh, now he remembered me. And he'll give you marks. Oh, he remembered me now. In this situation also. Okay, so whatever possible way, we just try to remember Krishna. Like Prahlad Maharaj. Okay, and serving Lord's lotus feet is Lakshmi Devi, we all know. She's always at the lotus feet of Lord Vishnu. Maharaj Prithu, he is deity worship. Okay. Next, Akrura, praying. Next, Hanuman. There's no need of explanation. He is the servant of Lord Ram. Friendship, Arjuna and Krishna, we know that, right? And Maharaj Bali, complete surrender. How we know that he gives himself up also, right? He gives all the three worlds. And when Maharaj Bali asks, where do I put the third feet? He says, put it on my head. So complete surrender. He gave himself up. Okay.
Mataji,
Yes, Prabhuji.
Archanam and Vandanam has which devotees?
Yeah, it's Akrura and Maharaj Prithu, Prabhuji. It's written here, right? You can. Are you able to see in the PPT?
Yes.
DT word is Maharaj Prithu.
Yes.
Yeah. And Akrura is for praying, Prabhuji. Vandanam.
Okay.
Yeah. Vandanam, Archanam. Archanam means deity worship, that is Maharaj Prithu. Vandanam means praying, that is Akrura. Right? Dasya means Hanuman becoming servant. Sakhyam is Arjuna in friendship. Atma Nivedanam means complete surrender, that is Maharaj Bali. Okay, Prabhuji?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, 7.2. ज्ञानं ते अहं सविज्ञानम् इदं वक्ष्यामि अशेषतः यज्ञात्वा नेह भूयो अन्यज् ज्ञातव्यम् अविशिष्यते. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. I shall never now declare unto you in full this knowledge both phenomenal and numinous, by knowing which there shall remain nothing further to be known. So in this chapter we will just be knowing knowledge of the absolute, like what do we know about Krishna, like everything about Krishna, the greatness of Krishna will be known in this chapter. Okay, so that is what we're going to see. So, in this, now Krishna is going to tell about all his material and spiritual worlds. Like he is the one who is in charge of all the phenomenal means material, numinous means spiritual, which we can't see. Phenomenal means which we can see. That is matter we can see. So we'll see in the PPT. Okay, what it exactly see. Okay, Lord Krishna explains full knowledge. That is, what is the full knowledge? That is both phenomenal and numinous. That is, he be telling, see, both about the spiritual and material. So, first matter. So, complete knowledge, transcendental knowledge is dividing into two. One is phenomenal, that is knowledge acquired or perceived by senses. Right? We can touch, we can see everything. That is phenomenal. That is matter, right? Matter we can see. And next, second one is numinous. Numinous means which we can't see. That is spiritual. So knowledge about spirit not acquired through senses, object as it is not necessarily, it can't be perceived by the sense. So matter and spirit they are talking about. Okay. So what is Krishna saying? Knowing this, nothing more there to be known. So this is the total knowledge. Total knowledge. So this is complete principles. So he is the controller of both. So Lord Krishna is the controller of both the spiritual and material, right? And why is Krishna explaining this to Arjuna? What is the qualification that Arjuna has? Anybody? Why Krishna is explaining this only to Arjuna? The Bhagavad Gita?
Mataji, because warrior Arjun was Lord Krishna's favorite devotee and friend, and Lord Krishna had an indirect or direct relationship with Queen Kunti, because Queen Kunti was the brother of Lord Krishna's father.
Yes, exactly. Hari Bol. Thank you, Prabhuji. So that's the qualification. As Prabhuji said, like Arjuna is a devotee and a friend. That's why he explained this whole thing to Arjuna. Okay. And Krishna, he is the cause of all causes. He is the source of all knowledge. Only object of meditation for all yoga process. Right? He is the Yagna Bhokta, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So let's go to 7.3. मनुष्याणां सहस्रेषु कश्चित् यतति सिद्धये यततामपि सिद्धानां कश्चिन्मां वेत्ति तत्त्वतः. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Out of many thousands among men, one may endeavor for perfection. And out of those who have achieved perfection, hardly one knows me in truth. So we now reading this shloka, we can understand how rarely we find devotees, a devotee of Krishna. See what is Krishna saying? See, out of many thousands of men, not just thousand, many thousands, Krishna is saying, among men, one may endeavor for perfection, right? Only one. And among those perfected, among such those who have achieved perfection, hardly one knows me in truth. So that is the rarity of a devotee. So we find devotees very scarcely in this material world. Okay, that is the rarity of a devotee in the material world. Okay, that's what Krishna is telling. See, if you see in a marathon, initially, see in the PPT, if you see there's so many people running, but in the end, how many are there who win the competition? And in the end, when towards the racing end, we just see a handful of people. Initially, there'll be so many people, but when towards the end of the marathon, you will hardly see a handful, 4 or 5 people. Right? So like that, Krishna is saying initially there'll be thousands of men. Among those thousands of men, one will be perfect, and out of those perfect also, only hardly that is also not guaranteed. He's saying hardly one knows me in truth. One person will be able to know me. Okay, now let's see what in the PPT they're saying. Why like that? We'll see. Rarely man achieves perfection. So, out of perfected souls, rarely some understand Krishna. Why? Because, see, generally there are different grades of man. And generally, how are they? Generally, the common man, how he is only interested in animal propensities like eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. Right? So, the common man is interested only in these basic propensities, animal propensities, eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. Okay, so that these are the thousands of men that Krishna is talking. So among such thousands of men, one gets perfect. Okay, one gets perfect. Who is that perfect person? He will be interested in transcendental knowledge. That one perfect person. And Krishna is saying, out of those persons, hardly one knows me in truth. One can become a devotee. See the rarity of a devotee. Okay, that's what. So very few. See, actually, very few people in this material world are interested in transcendental knowledge. They want to know about the soul, super soul, body, absolute truth. But normally, everybody is interested just in eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. Okay, they just want to behave like an animal. Okay, hardly nobody wants to have spiritual knowledge at all. So very few are there who are interested in these transcendental knowledge. So actually, this transcendental knowledge 1 to 6 we saw, right? What is discussed in 1 to 6? We saw Gnana Yoga, Dhyana Yoga, and the understanding about self means what is soul, super soul, and the process of realization, that is self realization. So we saw difference between Gnana or Sankhya Yoga. We saw that is difference between soul and matter, that is body, soul, and body. We saw Gnana Yoga means what? Impersonal Brahman. Okay, so we saw that Jnana Yoga in 1 to 6 chapters, and in the 6th chapter we saw Dhyana Yoga or Ashtanga Yoga, meditating. The yogi meditates on Paramatma in the heart. So 1 to 6 we saw that. Next, understanding Krishna as absolute truth. He is the cause of all causes, supreme personality of Godhead, all 6 opulences in full. We discussed this, what opulences Krishna has in full. Next, can only be known by process of Krishna consciousness engaged in devotional service. So Krishna can be known only through bhakti, no other process. Process of bhakti is not easy as proclaimed by impersonalists. See why impersonalists, they say why bhakti is easy, and why do they think what they do is difficult? They don't think that the process they are following is impractical, but they think that bhakti is, they think bhakti is very easy, and they think practicing and Gnana Yoga is very difficult. Why? Because the impersonalists, they say, okay, just you can chant any, because they don't have one particular demigod, right? For them, everybody is God. because they want to focus on energy or light. So because they can't focus on light all the time, what they tell is they take there are 36 crores of demigods, and you take any one god and you can chant any name, any demigod. For example, if you take Lord Shiva, you chant the names of Shiva. For them, Shiva, any god, if you take Shiva or Lord Shiva or Durga, whatever mantras they have, you chant and they think that they are the supreme personality of Godhead. They think any demigod is equal to Krishna. Okay, they say just chant any name, any path is the same, because God has no form and there are no rules to follow, so nothing matters. So they think that bhakti is emotional and simple. There are no rules and regulations, nothing. You can just take any demigod and just chant their name. So they think it is so easy. Okay, so from outside, bhakti looks easy. Can any one of you tell, is practicing bhakti easy? Is it easy? Bhakti easy?
No, Mataji.
Yeah. So from outside it looks easy. We may just casually say, hear about Krishna, read about Krishna, chant about Krishna, do seva. It sounds very easy. But when we practically do, see, getting up in the Brahma Muhurta, can anybody do that? It's so difficult, right? You have to get up in the Brahma Muhurta, take a bath. Means at 3:30 you have to get up. Brahma Muhurta, you have to get up and attend the Mangalarti at 4:30. And then after the Mangalarti is over, you do your 16 rounds of chanting. And then you attend the Bhagavatam class. And then there is the Guru Puja at 7:30. Right? All this you have to follow. And after the Guru Puja, there is the Bhagavatam class, right? And then you follow, then you do your duties, I mean, like jobs or whatever you have to do, you do. And again you come back in the evening, again you do the evening aarti, right? Evening aarti you do, or if you have any seva in the temple, you have to do that seva. If you are into book distribution, you do your book distribution seva. Or if you have any other sevas, garland making seva or boga seva, so you are in your own seva. You are never free actually. You are always doing, right? You are always busy. You have to do your fasting, like Ekadasi, complete fasting. I mean, like on Janmashtami, right? All that. So it may sound like it's very easy. I mean, to hear it is easy, but all this is it becomes easy when you're in the association of devotees. Okay. So here, that's why these people, they think there are no rules. Any god is supreme personality of Godhead. You can chant any name. So they take it easy. They think it is so easy. Their bhakti is so easy. They think there are no rules and regulations because God has no form. Anybody can be God. Any mantra can be chanted. So they take bhakti is emotional and it is simple. Okay, why do they think? Because for them, from outside, bhakti looks easy because like them, we don't do any body torture. Like we don't love, like they what they torture their body, right? The Ashtanga yogis and the Gnana yogis, they torture their body so much. They speculate on philosophy so much. Okay, they mix and match philosophy, right? So that is why they think bhakti is for ordinary people. That's why we will take a higher path, that is Gnana Yoga or Ashtanga Yoga path. But Prabhupada says this is wrong. See, real bhakti is not cheap at all. See, bhakti requires surrender of ego. How difficult is that? See, we have to surrender our ego to Krishna. So, when we came into this material world, we were thinking that I am the enjoyer, because we were under the false ego that we are the body and everything in this material world is for my enjoyment. Now we are sacrificing our false ego and we are surrendering it to Krishna. We are saying now we are accepting, I mean, like Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead, and we are moving the focus from our sense gratification to pleasing Krishna. So, how difficult is that? So, we are surrendering our ego, we are accepting Krishna as a person, whereas the Gnanis and the Ashtanga yogis, they don't accept Krishna as a person, right? They don't have that particular, they don't do seva, they don't have that relationship with the Lord. Okay, And Shastras, we also follow the Shastras, right? In the disciplic succession. Whereas the Ashtanga yogis and Gnana yogis, they speculate on Shastras because they have no one to guide them. They read by themselves, they speculate, and they create their own philosophy. So they don't have any disciplic succession where there is a guru to help them, nothing, right? That is not there. So guru is not there. So that is why it is not easy. Prabhupada says they don't follow all these rules and they do everything on their own. Okay, that's why Prabhupada says bhakti is not easy, but it may appear easy for them. So that's why here they are saying, Prabhupada says process of bhakti is not easy to practice as proclaimed by impersonalists. Okay. So we said, right, can be only known by the process of Krishna consciousness engaged in devotional service. And what is the process of devotional service? Vedic literatures, Upanishads, Puranas, Narada Pancharatra, and simply disturbance to the society. So what do people think, right? Generally, all these Upanishads, Puranas, Pancharatra, all these are disturbance to the society. Nowadays, if you see in some of the universities, some of the students they are tearing these books. They're saying this, all these books are written by a person. What is the, I mean, like they consider Vedavyasa as also a person. They don't consider him as an incarnation of Krishna. And they're tearing all these books now. They're not giving importance to all these Vedic literature, saying that a man like us has written those books. So such people, who don't read the Upanishads, thinking that they're coming from directly Krishna. I mean, like from Vedavyas is an incarnation of Krishna. Such people are simply a disturbance to the society. Okay, when if you're following the process of devotional service, means we have to follow according to what is written in the Upanishads, Puranas, and the Narada Pancharatra. But if you go against these, you don't consider the Shastras at all, the Vedic literatures, such kind of people are simply a disturbance to society. Okay. Okay, 7.4. Bhumir apo analo vayu kammano buddhir evacha ahankara itiyam me bhinna prakritir ashtada. Earth, translation by Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego. All together, eight constitute my separated material energies. Now, Krishna is talking about his material energies here. Okay, so the first five, like earth, water, fire, air, ether, these are called the gross elements. Okay, gross elements in the sense you can touch them. If not touch them, you can feel them also. Air, like you can feel them. So earth, water, fire, air, ether. So anything you take in this material world is made up of these five elements. Anything, even our body is also made of these five elements, including our body or your cell phone, your house, your brick, or anything you take, your clothing. So everything is a mixture of these, right? So because we are staying on this earthly planet, we are mostly made of earth. And people who are staying in the sun planet, they are mostly made up of fire. So their fire percentage of fire is more. Entities who are staying in water, like fish and all those, they are made mostly of water. That's why they're able to stay in water bodies. Okay, so like that, each person, like now we are staying on earth. That's why our body is made mostly of earth. That's why when we die, that's why they bury us or burn us in earth, so that we mix off with earth and become one with earth.
Mataji,
Yes, Prabhuji?
Mataji, like we human beings and the grass and trees, they are normally made of earth, and the aquatics are normally made of water. So,
Hmm?
Mataji, how does
Mostly
ether
made of
comes?
water. No, no, mostly made of water. Not only water, a mixture of these five. But
Yes,
main percentage is water. Now, like how for us, main percentage is like we are made of earth. Like and the remaining ingredients are there: water, fire, air, ether, all are there. But mostly of earth, like that.
yeah. Mataji, how does ether comes in
Ether means
making the
sky,
body?
Prabhuji. Ether is sky.
Ether is sky.
Sky. Ether means sky. See, in the sky only you get different. It's depicts sound. Okay. So
Yes,
generally of earth, water, fire, air, ether, these are the gross where we can see. And mind, intelligence, false ego is present within the body. That is called subtle elements. These are the subtle elements which we can't see. See, that's why when what do you say? When we die, uh, the subtle body and the soul and the super soul, they go into the next body. See, generally when people say they see ghost, right? The ghost is made up of this mind, intelligence, and false ego. You can't see it. It is always floating in air, right? So that is what they say: mind, intelligence, false ego. That is the subtle body that they are talking about. Okay, so all these together constitute our this Krishna is telling my separated material energies. Okay, so two bodies are there: gross body, subtle body. Gross body is made up of gross body in the sense outside body that we see, we can touch that, right? That is made up of earth, water, fire, air, ether, and the subtle body inside the gross body, that is made up of mind, intelligence, and false ego. So our mind is also material, intelligence is also material, and the false ego is also material. Okay, so next 7.5. अपरेयम् इतस्तु अन्यां प्रकृतिं विद्धि मे परां जीवभूतां महाबाहो ययेदं धार्यते जगत्. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Besides these, O mighty armed Arjuna, there is another superior nature of mind which comprises the living entities who are exploiting the resources of this material inferior nature. Okay, so Krishna is saying to Arjuna, besides this, now he's talked about the separated material energies. Now he's talking about a superior energy of his. What is that? The living entities, right? The spirit souls who are exploiting the resources of. So he talked early in the earlier shloka about his material nature, which is inferior. So material nature is inferior. Now he's talking about the superior energy of the living entities. Okay. So in the earlier shloka, he was saying that Krishna is saying the material nature is mostly made up of earth, water, fire, ether, mind. Mind, intelligence, and false ego. So the material nature consists of all these. Okay, so we are also part of material nature, right? So we also come as a part of material nature. So Krishna is saying the whole material nature is made of this, and in that material nature, who is present? Who is the superior energy there? It is the living entities. And what are they doing? They are exploiting the resources of this material nature. Why are they exploiting the inferior material nature? Because they are thinking that they are the enjoyer. See, out of that false ego, they are thinking that they are the body, right? Actually, they are spirit souls. But when they come to this material world of Prakriti, they accept a material. The spirit soul takes on a material body. So by taking that body, they think that they are the enjoyers, they are the masters, right? Everything in this material world is for their enjoyment. So that's why they think they start exploiting the material nature. They start using everything for their enjoyment. Okay. 7.6 Etad yonini bhutani sarvani iti upadharaya aham kritsnasya jagatah prabhavah pralayastata. All created beings have their source in these two natures of all that is material and all that is spiritual in this world. Know for certain that I am both the origin and the dissolution. See, everything. So, Krishna is now saying that everything, all the creatures are there in these two natures. Either they are in the material world or in the spiritual world. See, the Baddha Jivas or the conditioned living entities are in the material world. The liberated Jivas are in the spiritual world. And of these two, Krishna is saying, no, for certain that I am the origin. See, I am the cause of these two, spiritual and the material worlds, and I will be the reason for the dissolution again. And whenever I want, it will start. Whenever I want, it will dissolve. So I am the origin. I am the reason for dissolution. So when the material world ends, when pralaya comes, the material world has to end, right? Obviously. But the spiritual world is eternal. It stays on like that. Only the material world, they dissolve. So Krishna is saying, I am both the origin, right? And I am the dissolution. So I am the starting. I create all this. And I am the reason for dissolution. Okay. So it's saying that indirectly he's trying to say that I am the source of all the spiritual and the material worlds. Okay.
Mataji, what does dissolution means?
Dissolution means everything gets destroyed, Prabhuji. The material nature, see, when pralaya comes, it dissolves, right? And dissolves and enters into Mahavishnu, right? So that dissolution means getting destroyed. The material world is temporary. You know that, Prabhuji. So it is temporary. So when pralaya comes, there should be a time when it ends. So when pralaya comes, the whole thing dissolves and enters into Mahavishnu. So that is dissolution, destruction. So the same thing is being said here. Earth, water, air, fire, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego are my separated energies. See, Krishna. So the plenary expansions. What are Krishna's plenary expansions? For material creation. How does he expand? Krishna, he expands as anybody. How does he expand? To create the material world, what three forms he takes?
Mataji, Mahavishnu, Garbhodaksha
Correct.
Vishnu, and Shirodaksha Vishnu.
Haribol. Yes, perfect, Prabhuji. Thank you. See, Mahavishnu, that is, or he is also known as Karanodakasai Vishnu, Garbhodakasai Vishnu, and Shirodakasai Vishnu. He is the Paramatma in every living entity, each and every atom he is present. Okay, so Krishna, when through his plenary expansions, he creates the material world, right? Through Mahavishnu and Garbhodakasai Vishnu, Shirodakasai Vishnu. So what does Mahavishnu do? He creates the total material energy, the Mahat Tattva, and Garbhodakasai, he enters into every universe. Each universe he enters and he maintains. From this Garbhodakasai Vishnu only, Brahma comes out, right? And Shirodakasai Vishnu, he enters into every atom to maintain as super soul. Okay, he's as Paramatma in every living entity, in every atom, in fact. So, but those who do not Krishna think that, what do they think? Material world is for my enjoyment, they think, right? Generally, actually, the whole material world should be, it is created by Krishna and it should be used for Krishna's. But the people, the living entities, they think that the material world, or kindly request the devotee, please mute yourself. Yeah, thank you. So, who do not know Krishna, they think that this material world is for their enjoyment. Okay? And the living entities are Purusha, cause, controller. They think that they are the Purusha, right? They are the enjoyer, they are the cause, they are the controller, they are the enjoyer of material energy. Okay, in that ignorance, they think that they are everything. Okay, they are the supreme enjoyer, controller of material energy. Okay, this material creation is temporary. All activities are directed by three Vishnus, and the ingredients of material world, we saw, right? What are they? They are the separated energies of the Lord. The gross elements are what? Earth, earth, water, fire, air, ether. So these are the five gross elements which we can see. What are the subtle elements? Mind, intelligence, false ego. Okay. So knowledge of the absolute. Next, 5 and 6 shloka. Besides the inferior energy, Lord Krishna's superior energy, the living entities are there. We've discussed, right? So Krishna's energy Shaktis, source of origin and dissolution. So actually, three energies of Krishna are there: the Antarangika Shakti, Bahiranga Shakti, and Tatastha Shakti. So Antaranga means the internal or the superior, and Bahiranga means what? Bahiranga, one second, means external or inferior. Okay, and Antaranga internal means his spiritual energy, and Tatastha means marginal or superior. Why are they saying this marginal? Because Tatastha Shakti is the soul or Jiva. So Jiva can either be in the spiritual world or in the material world. So he has that freedom. So it's up to him whether he wants to be in the material world or in the spiritual world. That freedom is given. Okay, so that's why he is called Tatastha or marginal. And Bahiranga means what? External energy. That is the material world. Okay, so the material world we saw is divided into gross and subtle. Gross is earth, water, fire, air, ether, and subtle is mind, intelligence, false ego. And the jivas, they're exploiting the material world in conditioned state because they are thinking that they are the enjoyer and everything in this material world is for them. And what does liberation mean? Free from material illusion, I and mine. So if you want to get liberated, what you should do? You should come out from that false ego. Like you should not do everything for your sense gratification. Like you should come out of that I and mine, and you should do everything to please Krishna. Then only can we get liberation. Otherwise, there's no way out from this material world. Okay, so now 7.7. मत्तः परतरं नान्यत् किञ्चित् अस्ति धनञ्जय मयि सर्वम् इदं प्रोतं सूत्रे मणिगण इव. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. O conqueror of wealth, there is no truth superior to me. Everything rests upon me as pearls are strung on a thread. See, when you see a pearl necklace, you only see the pearl. See, in the PPT also you can see a pearl, right? So you just see the pearls only. You don't see the thread. But only because the thread is there, the pearls are in that shape. But actually, you can't see the thread. Right? In the necklace, you can't see the thread. You only see the pearls. So, like that, in this whole, what Krishna is trying to say is like everything rests on him. See, what do we think in this material world? Everything we think that because we are in this prakriti or material world, we think that prakriti or material world is doing it, but that everything is being done by that invisible thread like Krishna. We are not able to see the thread, but that is why we are thinking it is material nature that is doing everything. But that invisible thread is Krishna. Okay, we are forgetting that because we don't see the thread. That does not mean I mean, like, see, if the thread is not there, the pearl necklace itself is not there, right? Though it is invisible, it does not mean if the thread is taken out, the whole pearl necklace will break and the pearls will fall down, right? It's a big chaos. So it doesn't mean because the thread is invisible, the thread is not there, right? So like that, just because you can't see Krishna in the material world, it does not mean it does not mean that Prakriti is the controller. Everything is happening because of Prakriti. So that invisible thread is Krishna. So he is the controller, he is the cause of all causes. He takes care of everything in the material world. Though physically he may not be present, but through his energies he is present and everything is taken care of him like an invisible thread in a pearl necklace. Okay? And different opulences of Krishna. So these are the different opulences of Krishna 7.8 to 11. Of the taste of the taste I am water, of light I am the moon, of om of Vedic mantras I am om, of ether of sound of ether I am sound, of man all that different opulences of Krishna are given here. Okay, so you can just go through these shlokas here. Okay, so 7.12. ये चैव सात्विका भाव राजसस्तमसा ये मत्त एवेति तान् विद्धि न तु अहं तेषु ते मयि. Translation by Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Know that all states of being, be they of goodness, passion or ignorance, are manifested by my energy. I am in one sense everything, but I am independent. I am not under the modes of material nature, for they are contrary. They are, for they, on the contrary, are within me. Okay, if you see what Krishna is telling, see the whole material world Prakriti is governed by the three modes, right? Mode of goodness, passion, and ignorance. It is governed by these three. So Krishna is the one who made these, right? Mode of goodness, passion, and ignorance. But he is never affected by them, right? He created them for the material world, but he is above these modes. Okay, just it's just like this. See, the king he makes the rules for the state, but those rules don't apply to the king, right? So like that, the king, the Krishna, he provides the modes, the three modes, but he is untouched by the modes. He is above the modes. Because Krishna does not belong to the material world. He is not of the material platform, and these modes belong to the material nature. So Krishna is above the material nature. He is in Shuddha Sattva. He is always transcendental. So he is never untouched by these modes. Though these modes are created by Krishna. Okay, so that we have to understand. Okay, so that's what they are saying. He is Nirguna. He is above the modes. See, Nirguna Krishna is Nirguna. He is not affected by the modes. Though he is the creator of the modes, he is unaffected. So all material activities are conducted. See, material in the Prakriti, everything is governed by these three modes. These modes emanate from the Supreme Lord, and he is not subordinate to them. So the Krishna does not come under these modes. Though he is the creator of these modes, he is not under these modes. So we saw the analogy, right? King and the lawmaker is not subject to state laws. Seven or 13. Ribir guna mayer bhaver ebhi sarvamidam jagat mohitam na bijanati mam ebhyah param avyayam. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Deluded by the three modes, goodness, passion, and ignorance, the whole world does not know me, who am above the modes and inexhaustible. One second. Okay. So deluded by the three modes, the whole world does not know me, who am above the modes and inexhaustible. So Krishna is saying here, see, when the soul is put into this material world, he gets a material body. So he is no longer spiritual now, right? He's covered by the material body and he becomes, what do you say, Baddha Jiva. He says, what is conditioned soul. Okay, so he forgets Krishna, totally forgets Krishna, and he thinks that he is the center, he is the master, he is the enjoyer. Okay, because of the these three modes, right? He thinks that he is the enjoyer, he is the everything. So he forgets Krishna, right? So that's what Krishna is saying. See, deluded by the three modes, because when he comes into this material nature, bound by the modes of passion, goodness, and ignorance, he forgets me. See, the whole world does not know me. They forget me. They turn their back towards me. In fact, they forget about me. In fact, now also, if you see many jivas, they don't think of worshipping Krishna at all. They go to the demigods like Lord Shiva, who gives quick material desires, right? So they forget about Krishna in this material world, but who is above the modes and he's inexhaustible. He's so great, he's above the modes. We forget such Krishna, and we think that we are the enjoyers, we are the masters, and we are so busy in that lifestyle that we are just going on increasing our wealth and properties, attachment to family members. We were busy with all that. We totally forgot about Krishna. So that is what Krishna is telling here. 7.14 दैवी एषा गुणमयी मम माया दुरत्यया मामेव ये प्रपद्यन्ते मायाम एताम तरन्ति ते. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. This divine energy of mind, consisting of the three modes of material nature, is difficult to overcome. But those who have surrendered unto me can easily cross beyond it. See, Krishna himself is saying this divine energy of mine. Why divine? Can anybody tell why the material energy? We said initially it is inferior, but why Krishna is saying divine? This divine energy of mine. Okay, why divine? Because it is working under his instruction, and Krishna is Krishna is the master, right? And Maya Devi is the servant of Krishna. So under the instructions of Krishna, she works. So that's why he is saying one of his energies, right? So that is why she becomes divine. So this divine energy of mind, consisting of the three modes of material nature, is difficult to overcome. See, very, very difficult to come out of Maya. So we are so much in Maya that it is very, because Maya has what do you say, a microscope. The weaknesses which we also don't know, Maya knows. She knows us how to trap us in this material world. So we always, always have to fear Maya. Never be confident that I can defeat Maya. Right? So Krishna is telling, right, it is very difficult to overcome Maya. Right? She has such a strong microscope that she digs in all, because she has so many years of experience, right? That is her duty, right? So she has to put us into Maya. She tests us so much that, see, that it's like Maya Devi. She's not trying to put us in this material world. She's like just testing us so that, see, if we are purified and we are able to go to Goloka Vrindavan, she is the happiest one. She is just like a devotee who tests so that we pass here so that we can go to Goloka Vrindavan. That's why she always gives different types of tests so that we don't create a botherance to Krishna once we go to Goloka Vrindavan. So that's her duty actually. So that's why Maya Devi, she always keeps attacking us with all these material desires. Why she gives us all these material desires, attachments, just to test, are we still in these, or do we want Krishna, or do we want these material things. She keeps on testing, 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 testing. Once we pass, then finally she says, she says, yeah, now fine, you are eligible to go to Goloka. And what is Krishna saying here? But one solution is there. But those who have surrendered unto me, because Maya Devi is a servant of Krishna, and if we surrender to Krishna, take shelter of Krishna, so Krishna can say, right? Oh, yeah, you leave this devotee. He's my candidate. I don't worry, leave him. So if Krishna says, what can Maya do? Maya Devi do nothing. She will let go. So that's why we see, to overcome Maya Devi by ourselves is very difficult. But to overcome Maya, if we take shelter of Krishna, who is the master of Maya Devi, then we can easily surpass Maya. Otherwise, Maya by itself, we can't cross over. Very, very difficult. Krishna himself is saying that. But the way possible is those who have surrendered to me. If you take shelter of my lotus feet, you can easily cross. Because Krishna, she's Maya Devi is a servant of, servant of Krishna. And if Krishna says, okay, you let this devotee come, 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 then what can Maya Devi do? She will say, yeah. If the master says, let this devotee come, they'll go off happily. So the best way is surrender to Krishna, take shelter of Krishna. Otherwise, without the taking shelter of Krishna, it is very difficult. In fact, it is impossible to come out of Maya. Right? So please understand that and always fear Maya and take shelter of Krishna's lotus feet, because she doesn't know, she knows not, we may even not know that we have that weakness in us. Right? But she knows our weakness, our inner weaknesses, which we also don't know. So that is Maya Devi. Okay, so we have to be very careful and take shelter of Krishna, surrender to Krishna, so that we can cross over this material nature, Maya. Okay, so Krishna explains, see, how to get free from Maya, the modes. See, we can see here, right? So, under the guidance of Krishna, Maya Devi works. Right? See, bound by clutches of Maya, we are Nitya Baddhas. So, a living entity is eternally bound. Why Nitya Baddha Jivas? Because we are actually spirit souls. But when we come to this material world, we get a material body. Okay, that's why we become Nitya Baddha, conditioned living entity. That's why we are said. So very difficult to overcome since controlled by Supreme Lord. Divine energy. See, we said, right, the material nature of Prakriti is called divine energy because it is because of its divine connection, because it is connected to Krishna, right? It is Krishna's divine energy. Material Prakriti is his energy. So that's why it is called divine energy. Guna as Roop. So only Krishna or his bona fide representative can rescue one, right? Only Krishna or Krishna's bona fide representative, like a guru, can free us from this material world. So devotional service can help one gain release. Krishna, out of paternal affection for the living entity, can order his energies, energy in the sense Maya Devi, can order Maya Devi to release the conditioned soul. He will order, you release this so and so devotee, and then Maya Devi will release, and we can go back to Krishna, we can Krishna Loka along with Krishna. Okay, so he is a Nitya Baddha. So difficult. See, that's why we cannot overcome Maya. It is difficult by our own endeavor. We cannot escape Maya. We cannot fight Maya by ourselves. Okay, it's difficult for us. So no one can trace out the history of being conditioned. So no one can trace the history since when we are conditioned. When we are in this, since how long we are in this material world, nobody knows. Okay. But if you want to get out of this conditioned swabhava, conditioned nature, what is the method? Easy by surrender. Okay, if you surrender, what will happen? get free from the clutches of Maya. So what is Krishna saying? Mam evaye prapadyante. So mom, just surrender to me, surrender to Krishna. So only Vishnu is the master of Maya. Okay. So now Krishna talks about those who surrender. Four people who those who surrender to Krishna, and four people those who don't surrender to Krishna. Okay. So in 7.15, Namam Dushkritino Muda Prapadyante Naradama Maya Apahrita Gnana Asuram Bhavamashrita. Translation by Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Those miscreants who are grossly foolish, lowest among mankind, whose knowledge is stolen by illusion, and who partake of the atheistic nature of demons, do not surrender unto me. Okay, so in this shloka, Krishna is explaining why some people do not surrender to him. Okay, so who are those four who don't surrender to him? So he's saying Namam Dushkritino Mudaha. So first he's talking about Muda. So Muda means what? Who is grossly foolish. So these people, they work hard only for material enjoyment. So they work like donkeys. If you know how a donkey works, right? Actually, there's no necessity for a donkey to work. See, wherever on the roadside, if it goes, it will get that much amount of grass. But it works from morning till evening, like tons and tons of clothes. It weighs for the washerman, and it works like so much from morning till evening just for that little bit of grass, which it can find anywhere on the roadside. So these people in the material world, these mudas or these foolish people, they keep on constantly working double shifts, whatever. They don't even sleep properly. They don't even eat properly. They'll be working like donkeys. All day they'll be working. Okay, for them it is like money. They just want. They think about money and comfort. That is what they want. And they have no. They say that I have no time for God. So they use their whole time only for gaining money and all these things, comfort. That is why they are called Muda. But what is the actual purpose of human life? If you want to live like an animal, in fact, animals, they don't work like us, right? Do they work like us to eat? No, right? They don't even work. We work like donkeys, and even after doing so much, we think we are earning money, comfort, but we are not able to eat properly, not sleep properly, full of tensions. Though we may have AC on, our mind is boiling. Where to store this money, where to put this money, black market money, this market money. All right. So many problems we have. Okay, so that's why these people, Krishna is saying they don't surrender. Four kinds of people. They are mudas. They're always busy earning money and comforts, and they have no time for spirituality. So these are grossly foolish muda. Then Naradhama. Naradhama means lowest among mankind. So these people, they do not use the human life for spiritual progress. Actually, human life is meant for what? To understand God and to revive our lost relationship with Krishna. But they ignore this opportunity. Okay, even after getting this rare human birth, they neglect devotion. Okay, these are the second kind of people. Next, third is Naradhama, then Mayaya Apahrita Gnana, means whose knowledge is stolen by illusion. So these people are educated people, like scholars, philosophers, scientists. See, although they are learned, they don't accept Krishna as supreme. Okay, we know, right? Scientists, philosophers, scholars, they don't believe Krishna, the concept of God itself, they don't believe. They don't accept Krishna as supreme. It means their knowledge is covered by Maya. Okay? So that's why they are saying that whose knowledge is stolen by illusion. So there's so much in Maya that they make all these material inventions and they think that they are great. They are not in a position to consider Krishna as the greatest person. They receive so many awards, whatever praise. The scientists, they make inventions. The philosophers all make inventions, and they feel so nice about that. So that is why they are lost in that illusion, in that praise. They are lost. So that's why they are not able to take Krishna as the supreme. Okay, they're in that illusion. They think that they are only great. So that's why their knowledge is stolen by illusion. And last one is asurim. Asurim means demons. So demonic mentality is they envy God. Okay, yeah. So demons, they envy God, and they don't accept his authority, and they create their own ideas about him, and they can't tolerate that someone is supreme. Okay, like Ravana, we see, right? Ravana, Hiranyakasipu, they are demons. They don't accept, like Ravana, if you see, they don't accept Lord Ram. Hiranyakasipu, if you see, he doesn't accept Narayana as God. He says, he tells Prahlad, say Om Hiranyakashpai Namaha. So they are envious of God and they think they are themselves God. That's why he told Prahlad, tell Om Hiranyakashpa Namaha. Okay, so they can't think they think they are only the greatest. They are themselves God. Okay, they envy God. They can't think someone else as God. Okay, so such people are called demons. And the first picture we told you, right? The Mudas are compared to donkeys. See how the donkey is working. So much load it is taking. So that's why they're called Mudas. And this is like what is the second one? Naradhama. So lowest of mankind. So here actually they are you can see in the picture Jaga and Madai, they are born in a Brahmin family, but because of bad association they get into all bad habits, drinking, meat eating, illicit sex and all those things. Okay, and they forget about God, totally they forget about God. They're actually Brahmanas, but because of bad association, they forget about God. But later, I mean, so here we're just trying to give Naradhama. They become Naradhama, they forget about God. But later they become one of the best devotees. That is a different story. But earlier, like they were Naradhama, if anybody talks to them about God, before Nityananda Prabhu spoke to them, they would like just even people were so scared of them, they never used to even come in front of them. Immediately when they see Jaga and Madai coming, everybody would go and shut their doors in the house. So people were so scared of them. Okay, such Naradhamas they were, that lowest of mankind. Okay. Chaturvida bhajante maam jana sukritino arjuna arto jignasur arthati jnani cha bharatarshava. O best among the Bharatas, four kinds of pious men render devotional service unto me: the distressed, the desirer of wealth, the inquisitive, and he who is searching for knowledge in the absolute. So now Krishna is telling four people who come to me. Okay, so Krishna here is saying why they are called pious people. Why pious? At least for even though they are asking something material, they are at least coming to Krishna. They are not going to some demigods, right? They are not going to some demigods, but they are coming to Krishna. So that is why Krishna is calling them pious. So now let's see who are the four pious people who are coming to Krishna. The first one they saying Chaturvide Bhajantama Sukritino Arjuna Artho Jignasi Arthati. So four kinds of people are what? One is distressed. So distressed means one who is in pain, right? So one who is having a problem in life. So those people come to Krishna. Next, desire of wealth, one who wants more money. He comes. Second kind of people. One third is inquisitive. He wants to know more about God. who am I? Who is God? What is my relationship with God? He's inquisitive. He wants to know more, but he's not serious. But he just wants to know, right? And last one is he who is searching, Gnani, who is searching for the knowledge of the absolute. So Gnani, he knows that he's the soul, and he knows that beyond the soul there is something more great, right? The absolute truth is there. So he is more interested in knowing that, right? He is more serious. He knows that he is the soul, and he knows that there is something more greater than the soul, right? He wants to know that. So that's why he's called a Gnani. So he's more on the spiritual side. Remaining all, we can just see that they are like not material side. But a Gnani, he's serious. He's more interested in knowing the spiritual. He knows he's the soul, and he wants to know more about that higher power. Okay. Okay, so here we see, like, in distress, we see the example of Gajendra. When Gajendra, he was in a distress condition, he calls out to Vishnu, right? And then Vishnu comes and he kills the crocodile by throwing the Sudarshan Chakra, right? And Draupadi also, when she was distressed, she calls out to Krishna, and Krishna helps by providing the sari, right? And that is the example of distressed. And now for wealth, who wants wealth? Dhruv Maharaj, right? He wanted the wealth of he wanted the kingdom like his grandfather Brahma, right? So Vishnu, that's why he started initially. That is why he started meditating. But later, when he saw Vishnu, his mind changes. Seeing the beautiful form of Vishnu, he says, "I was looking for broken pieces of glass, but I found a diamond." So I don't know, no longer want the kingdom anything. I just want to serve you. I want to do devotional service, he says to Vishnu. But Vishnu says that no, 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 you have to continue. No, you have to. Dhruva, we all know that the pole star is there, right? After he dies, he gets liberated, he goes to the pole star. There's a separate planet for Dhruva Maharaj. Okay, that Vishnu gives him. Okay, so Dhruva is an example for wealth. And Sugriva also, he made friendship with Lord Ram because he wanted the kingdom, right? He wanted Lord Rama to kill Vali, and so that he could get the kingdom. That is, so these two are the examples of wealth. And next here we see in the last here, right? Sukadev Goswami and Parikshit Maharaj, inquisitive. So in the last 7 days, Parikshit Maharaj was like he wanted to know about Krishna, God. So he was inquisitive. That is why he's asking questions to Sukadev Goswami. And in the below picture, we can see that how Suta Goswami in Naimisharanya, he's educating all Saunakadi rishis. So Saunakadi rishis, they're asking about asking questions about spirituality, and so Suta Goswami is giving the answers to that. Actually, Suta Goswami, he heard this the Bhagavatam that he's telling the Saunakadi rishis. He heard it when Sukadev Goswami was telling it to Parikshit Maharaj. So he was one among present there when he was Sukadev Goswami was giving that Srimad Bhagavatam to Parikshit Maharaj. Suta Goswami was also there. That Suta Goswami only he was giving the same Bhagavatam he recited to the Saunakadi rishis who are in the Naimisharanya. Okay, and in the middle picture we can see, right, how Sukadev Goswami is there in the womb of his mother. Till 16 years he doesn't come out. His mother, see, to bear the child for 9 to 10 months is itself so overburdening for the mother, the weight of the baby. But Sukadev Goswami, he refuses to come out for 16 years. So now Vyasadeva and his mother both were concerned, and it was becoming difficult for the mother also. So Vyasadeva asked, "Please come out." But Sukadev Goswami from inside says, "No, no, no, I don't want to come out. Maya will attack me if I come out. I will stay inside only. I don't want to come out." Okay. He says, "No, no, nothing. Maya won't attack you. Come out, no problem." So you go and then he says, Sukadev Goswami says, "You go and call Krishna and ask Krishna to tell me that Maya won't attack me, then I will come. So now Vyasa Maharshi goes to Dwaraka, he calls Krishna, and then Krishna comes and says, okay, Sukadev Goswami, come out, Maya will not attack you, no problem, come out. And that is when he comes out of the womb as a 16-year-old boy. So you can see in the picture, right, in the right hand side, that is Sukadev Goswami in blue color. Right, he comes out like a 16-year-old boy from the womb of the mother. And as soon as he comes out, he doesn't stay in the house. Immediately, he starts running out into the forest. Like that bear, with that bear body only, he starts running. And his father, Vyasadeva, also starts running. Where are you going, my son? And then Sukadev Goswami said, I'm not going to stay with you. If I stay with you, I'll fall in Maya, attachment, affection, and all that. I'm going into the forest. And then Vyasadeva also starts running behind him. So that is the story. He comes under Jignasu, Gnani. So he is a Gnani, right? So that's why he is thinking that Maya will attack me and all that, okay? So Sukritina is all that same thing, pious people. Okay, same thing you can see. So are these people pure devotees? No, because they have some aspiration to fulfill in exchange for devotional service. So they are not pure devotees because they have something material in mind. So what is pure devotional service? Without any desire for yourself, if you just do it to please Krishna, that is pure devotional service. And destiny of Sukritinas, they associate with pure devotees and get purified. So these devotees, they associate with the pure devotees. These Sukritina, they associate with pure devotees, and in the long run, they also get purified. At what stage do Sukritinas become pure? So when they are free from all material desires, right, they should become free of material desires. That is, they should not do anything for themselves, right? They should do everything to please Krishna. So when they fully understand that material remuneration has nothing to do with spiritual improvement. What is the hope for miscreants in regard to devotional service? For them, devotional service is very difficult because their lives are selfish, irregular, and without spiritual goals. Is there any hope anytime? Okay, so they're talking about Dushkritana, like Mudas and all those people, right? So, do they have any hope? So, Krishna is saying, yeah, they do have hope. How? By chance, if they get in touch with a pure devotee, by the mercy of the pure devotee, they can start their bhakti. Okay, the same thing. So now in text 17, actually, they talk about Krishna says, among the four, who is the best? Among the distressed, the gnani, the inquisitive, and the desirer of wealth, who is best? So Krishna says, who is the best? Anybody, any guesses? Who Krishna says is the best? Krishna says Gnani is the best. Why? He will see. See who is the best among four kinds of pious people. Gnani, Krishna says. Why? Gnani is in full knowledge of absolute truth and free from material desires. See, one thing we can understand actually. See, why Krishna talks about Gnani. Though Gnani, see, initially Gnani, though he knows that he is just the soul, but why he considers Gnani the best is gradually he progresses. Initially he realizes that I am not the body, I am the soul, right? And then he understands and he thinks he merges into the Brahman. Then later, next stage, after few births, again he understands that like worship, he starts meditating on Paramatma in the heart. So he progresses from impersonal Brahman to Paramatma. And next, again from Paramatma, finally he realizes that I am an eternal servant of the Supreme Person. Okay, so when this knowledge comes, right, it naturally becomes loving service. Now he feels like doing seva, devotional service. Okay, then he comes into bhakti yoga. So that is why he is more interested. He says that out of the four, Gnani is the best because he gradually progresses in spirituality from impersonal Brahman to Paramatma, finally to Bhagavan, where finally he will develop a loving relationship with Krishna. Okay, so that is why Krishna says Gnani is the best. He is on the spiritual side. But if you see the remaining, they are on the material side. They have come with some desires. But a Gnani, he has no desires. He just wants to please Krishna. Gradually, we'll see, right? Gnani means first he is in the impersonal Brahmajyoti, then to the Paramatma stage, and then finally to the Bhagavan stage he comes, where there is a loving relationship with Krishna. Okay, that's why he says Gnani is the best among all the four. In full knowledge of the absolute truth and free of material desires, and he has no material desires like other three. So, okay, he engages in pure devotional service. Lord is very dear to him and he is dear to the Lord. Obviously, when he finally comes to that Bhakti Yoga stage, he engages in pure devotional service and the Lord is very dear to him and he is dear to Lord. So, when one is in pure knowledge of the transcendence of the Supreme Lord, material contamination obviously cannot touch him. Okay, so next shloka. उदाराः सर्व एवैति ज्ञानी तु आत्मैव मे मतम् आस्थितः स हि युक्तात्मा माम् एवानुत्तमां गतिम्. All these devotees are undoubtedly magnanimous souls, but he who is situated in knowledge of me, I consider to be just like my own self. Being engaged in my transcendental service, he is sure to attain me, the highest and the most perfect goal. So that's what we discussed, right, in the previous shloka. See, all these devotees are undoubtedly, he's calling them magnanimous souls, great souls. Right? All of them, all the four are great because they have come to Krishna. Whatever reason, whether it is for material or what reason, but they have come to me. They didn't go to some other demigods. That's why he's calling them magnanimous. But he who is situated in knowledge of me, means he's talking about Gnani. He's telling that Gnani is the best of all. Out of all the four magnanimous souls, Gnani is even more higher. Why? Because he like we spoke, right? From Gnani, from impersonal Brahman, he finally moves to Paramatma, Paramatma to Bhagavan, and where he understands that he is the servant of Krishna, and then that loving devotional service starts. So when devotional service starts, what happens? Finally, he will go back to Krishna Loka. That's what they are saying in the shloka. He is sure to attain me, the highest and the most perfect goal. 7.19 Bahunam janmanam ante gnanavan mam prapadyate vasudevah sarvam iti sa mahatma sudurlabha. After many births and deaths, he who is actually in knowledge surrenders unto me, knowing me to be the cause of all causes and all that is. Such a great soul is very rare. So now that's what Krishna is saying. See, after many births and deaths, one who is in knowledge, see, they will pass through all these different steps, karma kandi, karma yoga, gnana yoga, ashtanga yoga, then bhakti yoga. Finally, when they come to bhakti yoga, then they will surrender to Krishna. So after many births and deaths, that time they will come into knowledge. He who is actually in knowledge surrenders unto me, knowing me to the cause. Then they will understand that Krishna is the cause of all causes. They will understand that everything in this material world or spiritual world is running on Krishna. Nothing is independent of him. So that time they will understand. See, when they're in this impersonal Brahman, they are just meditating on Krishna. And even as Paramatma, they're just meditating. There is no relationship. But when they come, after many births, they come to this Bhakti Yoga stage, they understand Krishna is a person. So Krishna is the cause of all causes. He is running everything. He's a man, he's a person, he's running all these. The material world is totally dependent on him. So then they understand all this after many births, after passing all these different steps. Okay, they understand that Krishna is a person, he is the cause of all causes, he is the in charge of everything, nothing is independent, everything is running because of him. So they understand. So that's what Krishna is saying. Such a great soul is very rare. So such a person who understands after so many births is very rare. We can't find a person like that who understands that Krishna is a person and he is the one who is responsible for all the things that are running in this material world and spiritual world. Okay. See, bhakti devotional service is very rare. Realization of one fully in knowledge. Supreme Personality of Godhead is the ultimate goal. See, Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that is the highest goal for us, Bhagavan. Okay, therefore surrender. Knows that spiritual life is full of activities which are eternal and blissful. If you see in the impersonal Brahman and Paramatma, there is no activity. They are just sitting and meditating. But when you come to the Bhagavan stage, or when you know Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, you will start doing devotional service. There is that loving reciprocation is there, right? So spiritual life is full of activities. Devotional service means what? Everything is activity, right? We don't just sit and meditate and like that, right? That's why they say that being a devotee is so difficult. For him, 24 hours is not enough. So much busy. Like a normal job person who does job in the material world, maybe he will do 9 to 5. But a devotee works more than that. Okay, see, so many activities are there actually in devotional service. Prasadam distribution, book distribution, go seva, garland making, ornament making, dress making for the deities, bhoga preparation, you name it, and there's so many, right? Many activities are there. So it is full of activities which are eternal and blissful and not just about impersonalism or voidism. Material world is a perverted reflection of spiritual activities. Actually, this material world is a reflection of the spiritual world. We read in the previous slokas, right? And we were talking about that banyan tree, right? It's a perverted reflection of the spiritual world, this material world. Okay? So generally, people think that they get scared of do we get in the spiritual world all these comforts? We think, in fact, it is we get much more. This is just the reflection. What can you expect in the reflection? See, if there is a real tree with an apples or apple tree, and in the reflection you just see there is reflection. You can't even touch that apple, right? So what fun is it? So like the material world is like that. You can't even touch it. Its reflection is in the water, right? You can't even touch it now properly. But the spiritual world is the you can see the real apple tree. You can touch it, you can pluck, and you can eat it. So that's why we are saying go to the spiritual world, not in this material world. It is just a reflection here. You can't taste anything. If you think that this itself is so tasty, how about when you go to the spiritual world, the variety there is more. Okay, so understands Lord as the cause of all causes and thus realizes a universal vision of Vasudeva and sees in all relation to the Lord, and this vision precipitates full surrender to Krishna as the highest goal. Okay, so he understands Krishna as Supreme Personality of Godhead is the highest and as the highest goal. So realizes the dependency. See, he understands that everything in this material world is dependent on him. So he takes the Supreme Lord's mercy. So beginning, see, when we come to Bhakti, they're saying that when trying to give up attachment to materialism, there is some leaning towards impersonalism. That's why, see, initially we are in that impersonal Brahman stage. Okay, that is stage one. That is what they're saying here. Okay, so, and then in the end, advanced stage, we understand that Krishna is Bhagavan. Okay, and we surrender to Krishna as Supreme Personality of Godhead. Okay, 20. Those whose intelligence is stolen by material desires surrender unto demigods and follow the particular rules and regulations of worship according to their own natures. So now they are saying, they're talking about demigods worship. See, generally, uh, people who have many material desires, they're not interested in spirituality. So what do this such people who want their material desires to be fulfilled? They take shelter of demigods. And when you do demigod worship, it is like they have certain kind of rituals that they have to do. So they have to follow some rules and regulations. Okay, when you surrender to that particular demigod, so Shiva means there is some rules and regulations, some rituals to be done, or Ganesha, or whatever particular demigod you surrender, there is some rules and regulations that you have to follow. That's what they're trying to say here. Now let's see in 21. So, what is Krishna saying? I'm in everyone's heart as the super soul. As soon as one desires to worship some demigod, see, we can see different types of demigods mentioned here in the PPT. Okay. Uh, what is Krishna saying? As soon as one desires to worship some demigod, I make his faith steady so that he can devote himself to that particular deity. So, what is Krishna saying? See, if any particular person he wants to worship a demigod, Krishna is saying, I will give him that faith so that he at least starts worshipping that demigod. Okay, he will give him that faith so that he can worship that demigod. Suppose if he has faith and if he wants to worship the demigod Lord Shiva, he will give him that faith. Okay, now you go and worship that demigod. Okay, he will create faith in Lord Shiva so that that person can go and worship Lord Shiva. Okay, so that is 21. So let's see what Krishna says next. Okay, so in 22, endowed with such a faith, so when he develops that faith, for example, in Lord Shiva, he endeavors to worship a particular demigod and he obtains his desires. Right? So when Krishna gives him that faith in Lord Shiva, now what? He starts worshipping that demigod. But what is Krishna saying? To fulfill his desires, he's worshipping that demigod. Okay, when he worships that demigod, he fulfills his desires through that demigod. But what is Krishna saying here? But in actuality, these benefits are bestowed by me alone. That person, he thinks that that demigod is giving his fulfilling his wishes. But the demigod can never fulfill the wishes directly. The demigod, whatever the person asks the demigod takes it to Krishna. Okay, and then if Krishna sanctions only, then that demigod can give that, fulfill the wish of that particular person. But that person doesn't know that. Okay, so that is why Krishna makes the faith of that of that person in that particular demigod. So at least indirectly, he is worshipping Krishna, right? Through that demigod, he is indirectly worshipping Krishna because it is Krishna who sanctions through the demigod. So the demigods can never sanction anything directly. So the demigod has to come to Krishna, and if Krishna sanctions only, then he will be able to sanction that wish to that particular person. So that's what Krishna is telling. But in actuality, these benefits are bestowed by me alone. So I only give those desires. If I sanction only, can the demigod sanction it to that particular person? Okay. So 7.23. Men of small intelligence worship the demigods and their fruits are limited and temporary. Those who worship the demigods go to the planets of the demigods, but my devotees ultimately reach my supreme planet. So, what is clear? Krishna telling, see, those who are worshipping the demigods, they are of men of small intelligence. Why? Because that whatever they're asking for, that is temporary. They're asking for material desires, right? Material desires are temporary and their fruits are limited. Everything is limited, it is temporary. And those who worship the demigod, they go to the planets of the demigods, which are also temporary. The demigods are temporary and their planets are also temporary. Right? The planet of Indra we worship. In the Indraloka, heaven is temporary. the moon planet, the sun planet, all are temporary. Brahmaloka, the highest material planet, Brahmaloka, that is also temporary. But what is Krishna saying? Those who worship me, but my devotees who worship me, they come to Krishna Loka, Goloka Vrindavan. That is eternal planet. It never gets destroyed. It's a spiritual planet. That is what Krishna is saying. Okay, intelligence stolen by material illusion, desires, fruits are limited, so they don't know. See, fruits are limited and temporary. Okay, they don't know about Krishna, lack of knowledge about Krishna. Krishna is the source of everything. Krishna makes faith steady. All this is the same thing, I mean, like what we have read. Okay, they go to demigod planets. But Krishna's devotees, they go to Krishna Loka. Okay. So demigod worshippers, see what is the nature generally, the people who worship demigods, they follow Karmakanda section of the Vedas. They are attached to material enjoyment and they seek quick results. Right? And philosophy believes that one who worships a demigod can reach the Supreme Lord. See, these people, the demigod worshippers, they think that whichever demigod they are worshipping, they are Supreme Personality of Godhead. Like if they worship Lord Shiva, they think he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. If they worship Ganesha, they think he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Means they accept demigods as equal to Krishna. Right? Whomever demigods they worship, they think they are on an equal level to Krishna. Okay, so a particular demigod is supreme instead of Krishna for them. Okay, and this whole world they think is for their enjoyment. And what is their goal? Dharma, Artha, Kama. They forget about moksha. They are more interested in Dharma, Artha, and Kama. And what is their mentality? I am the enjoyer. Okay, and they want to go to that's why they do karma kanda. They want to go to heavenly planets, higher planets. They want to go. Okay, they have so many material desires. Action. So that's why they perform. We've seen that sacrifice cycle, right? Where they perform their prescribed duties and they worship the demigods and they get whatever they want. Okay. Result is what? He achieves higher planetary systems and enjoys until his pious results. So what happens when you perform that sacrifice? You go to that. After you die, you go to that heavenly planet until your pious credit is there. But when the pious credit is over, you come back to the earthly planet. Again, you have to come back to this earthly planet. See 7.24. Avyaktam vyaktim apannam manyate mam abuddhayah param bhavan ajananto mama vyayam anuttamam. Unintelligent men who do not know me perfectly think that I, the Supreme Personality of Krishna, was impersonal before and have now assumed this personality. Due to their small knowledge, they do not know my higher nature, which is imperishable and supreme. So these people, some intelligent men, what do they think? See, before Krishna came to this material planet, he was like energy or light, right? And now when he came to the material planet, they are thinking now he has assumed a form. So they think like Krishna was impersonal before he came to this material planet and now he has taken a form. But they don't understand, these people, they don't understand that Krishna is Bhagavan. Earlier also he is having a form, a transcendental form. He is Bhagavan, right? Krishna is Supreme Personality of Godhead. And now that same form only is coming here as Krishna, right? But they don't understand that. That's why Krishna is saying unintelligent men, those who don't know me, they think before the creation, like I am impersonal, I have no form. They are thinking, oh, just to come to this material world, now he has taken some form. Okay, so that is not the case. Krishna is saying, no, I had a form before. I'm Krishna. I am the Supreme Personality of Godhead. I have a form. I'm Bhagavan. I was never impersonal. I mean, impersonal aspect is there, but I'm not impersonal. I'm a person. And that is also, I mean, like we said, like different stages people see God, right? The highest way of seeing is Bhagavan. Actually, Krishna is God. He's a person. So that is what Krishna wants to understand, like how the intelligent person think that Krishna had no form before creation, and after the creation, when he comes to this material world, he just to take some form, he has taken a form. People think, but it is not that. So he had a form before, and he already also has a the same form. He comes to the material world also. Okay. Please bear with me. They're just uh, four more shlokas. If we can successfully complete chapter 7, I know it's too difficult for you to take it up. But only thing is, I would have actually shifted it into two classes, but we have very little time. And one day we could not take because all of you wanted to go out on Saturday. So we had to skip classes. So that's the only reason. Please bear with me for another 5-10 minutes. We can complete the shlokas. Okay. नाहं प्रकाशः सर्वस्य योगमाया समावृतः मूढोऽयं नाभिजानाति लोको माम् अजम् अव्ययम्. I am never manifest to the foolish and unintelligent. For them, I am covered by my eternal creative potency, Yoga Maya. And so the deluded world knows me not, who am unborn and infallible. So Krishna is saying, I can never be, I mean, like, only the devotees can understand me and see me. But all the foolish and unintelligent people cannot see me. See, actually, when Krishna says, I'm not manifest to everyone, what does he mean? See, when Krishna was on earth, everybody could see him, right? All the people could see him, right? But only few people could recognize him as the supreme personality of Godhead, like the Pandavas, Kunti Maharani, Bhishma, Dronacharya. So some people could recognize Krishna as the supreme personality of Godhead, while the remaining people like Duryodhana or the Kauravas or the remaining people, the common people, they just thought him to be like a common a politician or a friend of the Pandavas or a cowherd boy. So they were thinking like that. Okay, so that is why it clearly, that is why Krishna is saying, I'm not manifest to everybody. So that's why, though Krishna was visible, he did not reveal himself. Why? How? Because of Yoga Maya. And who is this Yoga Maya? Yoga Maya is Krishna's internal spiritual energy. So it creates this Yoga Maya, it creates a curtain. Okay, if someone approaches with pride, envy, or something like that, this curtain it puts a curtain so that they can't understand Krishna. Okay, so why don't people recognize Krishna? That is why they don't understand. See, why don't here Krishna is saying, why don't people recognize him? Because Krishna says these people are moda. They are spiritually foolish, not materially foolish, spiritually foolish. Why spiritually foolish? See, education wise, they may be highly intelligent. In school or in science, they are highly intelligent. Why the Krishna is calling spiritually foolish? It means they think God must be ordinary. They think that God cannot have a form. They think that Krishna is just a historical man. So when you think in this way, in the internal potency, it blocks his vision because he is making up his mind before itself that Krishna is like this. So that's why the internal potency blocks his vision because he thinks like this. Okay. And in the last, Krishna says, I'm unborn and infallible. So Krishna, when he comes to this material world, he doesn't, he is not born like us, right? He appears. Okay. He came with his four-handed Vishnu form when he came into this material world. But when his parents requested him to come back like a normal child, then he came as Krishna as a two-handed form baby. Okay, so he does not get old, he does not lose his power, he does not become exhausted. So his body is like, even though he comes to this material world, it is transcendental. His body is eternal. It is Sachidananda. It is eternal, full of knowledge and bliss. Right? But those covered by Yogamaya think he is just like us. Because of that curtain of Yogamaya, they cannot see Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They think he is just like one of us. He's a politician or a friend of Pandavas, or he's a cowherd boy. Like that they think. Okay, so here they're trying to say Krishna is not visible to everybody. He's covered by his internal potency. That curtain of Maya is there, Yoga Maya is there. So only devotees can recognize him as Krishna, who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Okay, to all the others, he remains. To the non-devotees and those who don't believe in Krishna, he is like hidden by the Yoga Maya. Okay, so only by bhakti can we know Krishna. See, only to pure devotees like Pandavas, Bhishma, and few others he could be seen. So others could not see. The same thing is being said. Okay, so we'll see 26 here. Okay, oh Arjuna, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, I know everything that has happened in the past, all that is happening in the present, and all things that are yet to come. I also know all living entities, but me no one knows. Or else the devotees, shall we stop here and shall we continue along with the 8th chapter tomorrow? Yes. With these shlokas?
Mataji, only few more, Mataji, but it's finish it, I think.
Hari Bol, thank you so much, Mataji. Do all the devotees agree like Mataji, or do we stop? Yeah? Should we continue?
I think until only 30, right, Mataji?
Yes, Mataji, that's
Yeah,
what.
I know 30 only, got 4 more only.
Yeah. We'll complete, Mataji, then?
Mataji, complete, okay.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Mataji. Thank you. So here they're saying, why does he know everything? Right? He's saying, oh Arjuna, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, I know everything, but me nobody knows. Why? Why does Krishna know everything? Because he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He's the super soul in everybody's heart. So he's beyond time. So he knows the future, present, past, everything he knows. Because he is Krishna, his Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is the super soul in everybody's heart. But why do we not know like Krishna? The thing is, we are jivas, like we forget. See, we do not remember our past birth. See, when we die and we take a new body, we forget everything, whatever has happened in the past. Right? So we cannot see tomorrow. We do not remember our past birth. So we cannot, in fact, we cannot see tomorrow also clearly. Okay, we even misjudge today. We don't understand what will happen to us today. Why? Because we have this material body and mind. Right? So our memory is limited, our knowledge is covered, our consciousness is like, we are Baddha Jivas, right? It is like our consciousness is also, it is filtered. But Krishna's body is not like us, it is not material. It is transcendental. It is the same body that he carries. Whether he comes to this material world or spiritual world, his body is transcendental. So there is no change of body or soul. That is why Krishna never forgets everything. He remembers everything. But for us, our body is material. So once we die, we leave this body and we take a new body because our body is not transcendental. So we forget everything of our previous life. Okay, so Krishna, that is why he is able to remember everything. So Krishna says, but me no one knows. So here Krishna is saying, even though he knows everyone, very few truly know him. Why? So because knowing Krishna is just not intellectual. See, to know Krishna, it does not mean that you read some books and then you will understand Krishna, you will get to know Krishna. It's not like you are understanding mathematics or history or science. See, Krishna can be known only through devotion. See, even realization of Brahman or Paramatma is not complete understanding of Krishna. So, without bhakti, Krishna remains, you cannot understand Krishna in full. So, only when you go through bhakti or devotional service can you know Krishna as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Okay, so we know only Krishna through devotion. That's why Krishna is saying, otherwise nobody can know me. Next 27. O Sian of Bharata, O conqueror of the foe, all living entities are born into delusion, bewildered by dualities arising from desire and hate. So this is very important. Okay, why do we get attached in this material world? See, anybody, what do you mean by dualities?
Two opposite characters, Mataji.
Hari Bol, yes, perfect, Mataji. Correct, correct. So dualities means opposites. So pairs of opposites like happiness and distress, honor and dishonor, gain and loss, good and bad. Okay, mine and not mine, like that. So the mind, it keeps swinging like a pendulum. See, I want this, I don't want that. So it goes in this desires. I want this, I don't want that. Like, so this constant pulling and pushing creates moha. Okay, that illusion, that is Maya. So how does it begin actually? See, when we take birth in this material world, we start thinking that I am this body, this is my family, this is my house, I am the enjoyer. So that is the beginning of Maya. So when we come to this material world, we come to with this thing. I am this body. This is my mother. This is my father. This is my family. This is my house. I am the enjoyer. So this is the first moha or Maya. And next what in the shloka they are saying, why desire and hate cause illusion. See, in desire we say that I will be happy if I get this. So desire means what? If I get this, I will be happy. And what is hate mean? I will be happy if this goes away. I don't want this. If this goes away, I will be happy. That is hate. So the mind becomes restless with these two. I want this, I don't want that. Then only I'll be happy. Okay, so the whole thing revolves around this desire and hate only. See, when the desire is fulfilled, what happens? Temporary happiness you will get. Right? If it is not fulfilled, what happens? You get anger. And if the same thing is lost, what happens? That same particular object is lost, what happens? You are sad. See, if it's like this, see, when your desire, suppose you wanted to buy a full cell phone, if your desire is fulfilled, temporary happiness. If it is not, if they don't buy it, you get angry. But if you, I mean, for instance, you buy it and then you lose it, you are sad. Right? So the living being is trapped in these reactions. So desire and hate are like two magnets pulling the mind in opposite directions. Your whole life is, you can just imagine, it comes under these two, desire and hate. Okay, so they're pulling the mind in opposite directions, and the soul gets caught between them and it forgets its constitutional position. The soul, because it thinks it is the body because of these desires and hates. It forgets its actual nature, its spiritual nature, it forgets. What's the nature of the soul? To be peaceful, right? It forgets that. It thinks it is the body and it gets lost in these desire and hate, this thing, dualities. So that is the condition of the living being, of the condition, Baddha Jiva, okay, in the material world. So 28. Persons who have acted piously in the previous lives and in this life and whose sinful actions are completely eradicated are free from the dualities of delusion and they engage themselves in my service with determination. So what is Krishna saying here? See, persons who have acted piously now and in their previous lives, and are fully free from these dualities of what moha, maya, and all these desire and hate, who are free from all that, they can engage in devotional service to me with determination and faith. So only such people will get a chance to do devotional service, Krishna is saying. So those who do pious activities now and who have done pious activities in the previous life and who are free from dualities, they can do my devotional service with determination, Krishna is saying. So same thing here is being said. How living entities are covered by Maya. So desiring to enjoy separate from Krishna. See, duality of desire and hate. Okay, these are the symptoms. You can please read when the PPT is given, and how they can be free, how they can be free from Maya, recognize Krishna's supremacy, become a devotee of Krishna. Okay, and act in the real constitutional position. The real constitutional position is Jivera Swarupa Hoy, Krishnera Nityadas. So they're the eternal servants of Krishna. Then they understand that. They forget that they're the masters or the enjoyers, and they understand that they're servant of Krishna. So this is also same thing. Act piously in this life, present life, past life. Freedom from dualities, sinful actions are completely eradicated. That is the qualification for devotional service. Okay, for whom is it difficult to practice? Those are having dualities, desire and hatred. For them, it will be difficult to practice. Okay. Okay, so how to be situated on the spiritual platform? Who can accept this process? Those who live practicing the regulative principles of religion, who are acted piously. Okay, same thing. Who have no sinful reactions, so they can meditate in trance on the supreme personality of Godhead. So we saw, right, how first the impersonal Brahman, then the Paramatma, and then best process is loving devotional service to Krishna. Okay, so when you do that, what happens? See, the result is living entity can get liberation from bewilderment by devotional service. So when they do devotional service, what happens? Devotees traverse earth to recover conditioned souls from the delusion, that is their mercy. Association of great devotees. See, generally, see, they're saying that by practicing Krishna consciousness, we can get liberation. But how? See, devotees, like that's why you see, right, the ISKCON devotees, they are always on the roads. They are trying to deliver the people by prasadam distribution or book distribution or by Sankirtan Yagna. Somehow or the other, they want to deliver the people across the world. So devotees traverse earth to recover the conditioned souls from their delusion. That is their mercy. So that is why association of great devotees is the door to liberation. Okay? And if you associate, on the other hand, with materialistic people, is the path to darkest reason of ignorance. Okay? So 7.29. Jara marana mokshaya mam ashritya yatanti ye te brahma tadvidu kritsnam adhyatmam karma chakhilam. Intelligent persons who are endeavoring for liberation from old age and death take refuge in me in devotional service. They are actually Brahman because they entirely know everything about my transcendental activities. Okay, so they are saying intelligent persons. See, those who want liberation from this material world, there is no other way other than bhakti or devotional service or taking up Krishna consciousness. See, as long as if you want to get liberated, like from this old age, death, birth, death, old age, disease, only ways by practicing Krishna consciousness. As long as you are attached to this material world, you do things for your sense gratification. The more material desires you have, the more you get attached to this material world. Okay, so when you do things for your sense gratification, obviously you you get a reaction, good or bad karma. So you have to come back to this material world again to enjoy or suffer those reactions, right? So that's why when you do things not for yourself but to please Krishna, they become akarma. So that is when you get a chance to get liberated. So that's what they're saying here. So they are actually Brahman because they entirely know everything about transcendental activities. So when they know that, they work for Krishna, they work to please Krishna. Okay. So last shloka. Sadibhutadidaivam mam sadhiyagnam cha ye viduhu prayanakale api cha mam te viduryukta chetasaha. Those in full consciousness of me, who know me, the Supreme Lord, to be the governing principle of material manifestation of the demigods and of all methods of sacrifice, can understand and know me, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, even at the time of death. So those who know that Krishna is the Supreme Lord, those who understand that he's the everything, cause of everything, like he's the governing principle of material manifestation. He's a reason for the material, cause of the material world. So he is the reason for the demigods, for the creation of the demigods. He is the methods of sacrifice, means he is the Yagna Bhokta. So who can understand that everything in this material and spiritual world, it is the Krishna who is the main, who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is taking care of everything. So such a kind of person, he can understand, he can remember Krishna, because throughout whatever he sees Krishna. So obviously such a person, at the time of death, he will surely see Krishna. Like how in the PPT they are showing Bhishma Dev, right? He is thinking about Krishna. So although he is on the bed of arrows, imagine how painful it is to be being poked by so many arrows. It's like a bed of arrows, but still he waits. Bhishma Dev, he has Icha Mrityu. He can die whenever he wants, but even with that pain of all those arrows, he waits. He wanted to see Krishna when he dies. So he's waiting for that day. Okay, and finally, after some days, Krishna, along with the Pandavas, come there, and then he sees Krishna, and then he leaves his body. So devotees are like that. So throughout they practice remembering Krishna. So obviously at the time of death, they see Krishna. And Krishna is forced to fulfill their wish to such pure devotees. Okay. So this, how to become Krishna conscious. So begin with association of devotees. Okay, so never get deviated from the path of entirely understanding. So understand Krishna in transcendental association. So association is very important. So understanding Lord as governing principle, right, of the demigods and all the sacrifices and everything. Okay, so gradually they become convinced of the Supreme, because they see him as the governing principle. So gradually they understand that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and at the time of death, he can never forget Krishna and be promoted to Goloka Vrindavan. Okay, Dhradavrata, determined faith. So he will have determined faith, conviction that simply by hearing and glorifying Supreme Lord, all the objectives will be fulfilled. Okay, thank you so much.